friends to Alatra TV. Today, we have a very special guest with us, and we will talk more about our future together and how do we envision it, and what do we as a civilization really deserve and can achieve when we work together towards one common goal. So today we have a very special guest, as I said. His name is Foster Gamble, and he is a researcher, co-writer, visual designer of the documentary Thrive. What on earth will it take? And Thrive 2, this is what it takes.
In 2011, Thrive, What on Earth Will It Take? Became one of the most widely seen documentaries in history. It held the promise of a future that allows humanity to truly thrive. In 2020, Thrive 2, This Is What It Takes, delivers on that promise.
We heard from over 1,000 innovators from all over the world who told us about their technologies, inventions, and insights.
Our attention shifted from possibilities to results. The breakthroughs we saw were so profound that we knew we had to get this information out for others to see.
The test is successful.
Dude!
Thrive 2, This Is What It Takes.
So today we're going to learn more about how did this project started and what really is inspired Foster to act towards a better society for all of us. Welcome to the program, Foster.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Please tell us what inspired you to start this project. What was this aha moment in your life?
Well, I think that the first aha moment was when I was in elementary school, probably 10, 11 years old. And we had what they call a nuclear attack drill. And that's where at our school, they would set off a siren and we would all be ducking under our desks and putting our arms over our head. And this is what was supposed to protect us from a nuclear attack. And I'm sitting there under my desk saying, I don't think the adults know what's going on here because this isn't going to protect me from a nuclear attack. So I came to two conclusions. One, humans don't know a lot about how to relate to energy technologically. And two, humans don't know a lot about relating to each other successfully. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this situation. And one of the things that I love about this conversation is that was when in the days when the US was trying to make Russia look like the evil empire, and Russia was trying to make the US look like the evil empire to try to get us to fight against each other for their own reasons. And now here we are with this incredible technology where we can have these conversations across the world, from 4 different cities simultaneously. And we're already having the conversation that can transcend that delusion that was literally threatening humans' very existence. So that was my traumatic moment in my childhood that led me on a path of my entire life, figuring out how can we be in harmony with energy, technologically and interpersonally.
Wow, and how did you come about filming such amazing movies that are now available to all of us?
Well, I've always loved films. They affect me so powerfully that I recognize the power of film. And so when I was in college, I wanted to be spending my time making films, and they didn't have a filmmaking department. So I persuaded them. I created a business plan and proposed that I do my thesis work as a filmmaker. And they couldn't figure out a reason why not. So they actually gave me the money, and they gave me some rooms in a building, and I created the filmmaking department at Princeton University. along with some friends. And that was the beginning of my passion for actually making films. And I realized how powerful it was if you could put a good message into film. But I also didn't know what I wanted to say at that point. So I dedicated my life instead to figuring out what's in the way of humanity thriving and what can we do about it.
That's so awesome. And you know what? We, as volunteers of ALLATRA International Public Movement, we have conducted millions of interviews around the globe. And we asked people some simple questions, such as, what type of world you would like to live in? And what do you think unites us all? So, Foster, we want you to be part of our social survey. Please tell us what type of world you would like to live in, where you, your family, and friends, and everybody around the globe are happy.
Yeah. Well, I am clearly dedicated to helping to create a life where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. And that means first and foremost that people are free, and if they're free, then they can be healthy. And if they're free and healthy, they're going to be prosperous. More and more people are learning the skills of having great relationships, creating workplaces where people are really excited, they're on purpose, they're producing things of value to other human beings. So I imagine oftentimes actually waking up to a world where the headlines that you would see on the internet or on newspaper, on television would be just more and more great news. It's actually, I love the terminology that you use of a creative society, because when we are at peace and when we are at free, then the creativity of humanity will be unleashed. That is the turning point that we're at right now. Buckminster Fuller called it utopia or oblivion. And either we're going to destroy ourselves and set the planet back a few 100,000 years right now, or we're actually going to get these principles of thriving. And then we will be waking up to a society where you walk down the street and people have light in their eyes. You know, they're excited to be alive, and they go to work and they're doing amazing stuff, and they come home and their family is actually getting along and nurturing and supporting each other. So that's the world that I want to live in, where creativity is unleashed beyond what we can even imagine now. And I think your second question was, what is it that unifies us? And for me, the scientific answer is the unified field. And that's why we had the great honor of revealing the unified field theory that Einstein was looking for and didn't find. And he said, you know, if somebody gets this, it'll be geometric in nature. But he said, but I'm a mathematician, I don't know geometry. So fortunately, Nassim Haramein and Marshall Lefferts and Adam Apollo and a number of other people, Robert Grant and I, have been working together for decades on the geometric aspect to go with the math and the physics and the music of the unified field. And the key, of course, is that we don't have to jump into a unified field. We are a product. We are an emergence. We're a flower in the unified field. So we're already unified with each other and with everything. So it's a matter of coming into the realization of that intellectually, letting go into the joy, the bliss of that emotionally, and then figuring out how to align not only our bodies and our health and our emotions and our mind, but our systems, our business systems, our economic systems, our media systems, our education, transportation, how to align all of those with the dynamics and the principles of the unified field. And that's why we made Thrive 2, because Kimberly and I, what we were seeing was so exciting and so encouraging, that's already here in the world, all aligned with the unified field, that we now know that it's not just some dream, it's already here.
Yeah, thank you, Foster.
Thank you.
That was a really great answer. Thank you very much. And our second question to you is exactly about these fundamental principles for such a society, yeah, for these systems regarding governance, economics, healthcare, education, science. What are the fundamental principles of the society in this thriving society? Can you describe how do you envisage this?
Yeah, that's maybe the most important question of all, because our society uh, has been trying to navigate around money or around political power, when what's actually needed is to realize how the unified field moves, and then to dance with the unified field. Everything works out if we can dance with the unified field, you know, in this sort of movement, rather than fighting up against it by, you know, burning stuff and exploding stuff and crushing stuff together to try to release the power. The power is everywhere. And if we can go into musical resonance, harmonic resonance with the field, you know, you can feel it when you're in resonance with your friends and with your partners. You can feel the energy is amplified. When you can go into resonance, you can feel how healing it is. If you're dealing with some sort of disease or something like that, magic can happen. But also with free energy, the key to all the working new energy devices that I have found is that they all are humbly resonating with the movement of energy in the unified field. And once you do that, once you dance with the field, once you ask it politely, it gives you everything you need, as long as you don't fight up against it or abuse it. So I would say the number one principle, if humanity is going to thrive, is the non-aggression principle. And the non-aggression principle says that no one is allowed to initiate force against anyone else except in true self-defense. If someone's attacking you, of course you have the right to defend yourself, but no one has the right to initiate force or fraud against someone else. Now that sounds really simple. Everybody will say, well, of course, that's the golden rule. Treat other people the way you want to be treated yourself. Well, yes, it's obvious in a way, because the one thing that Kimberly and I have found that all human beings agree to, it's tough to get a family to agree on a restaurant for dinner, much less to get the entire of humanity to agree on anything. But so far, 100%, and we've been doing this for many years, everybody agrees that they don't want to be violated against their will. So, wow, in the same way that the torus, this donut-shaped vortex, is the fundamental energy pattern of sustainability at all scales, and most people don't even know what a torus is. It's been right under our nose. It's there in a seed. It's there in the spiral on your fingertip. It's there in the magnetic field around the Earth, the shape of a galaxy. It's there everywhere, but we're just beginning to realize it's the blueprint. And it's the same way with the non-aggression principle. It's so obvious that no one should be creating violence against someone else that we've missed it. And then we've given permission to the pharaohs and the priests and the dictators and the kings, and now the presidents and the premier. We've given away our permission to violate us. That's what taxation is. It's taking somebody's money against their will. That's what rulership is. It's ruling someone, telling them what they can and can't do against their will, claiming the authority to do that when no one gave you that authority. And so I think this is the number one principle. And let me, particularly for you guys, because you have a real understanding of the sovereignty and the electrodynamics of this. If you imagine, as Rudolf Steiner said, that a plant and a human being is a circuit between space, between the sun and the earth, we are an electrical circuit passing the energy through, down into the center, and the energy from the center is passing through us out. So we're literally an electric circuit. And all throughout human history, most of it anyway, anytime that people are trying to rule over and dominate other people, they're constricting the creativity. And therefore, they're short-circuiting the natural human system, which is to be free, independent, sovereign beings. Whenever that is allowed, what ensues is happiness, creativity, prosperity, and security. So that's what makes it all possible, is releasing the creative energy of human beings, just like with free energy technologies, to do what we're here to do, which is really to thrive and create.
Thank you so much, Irina and Chris. Do you guys have a question for Foster?
Maybe it's a good point to share the 8 foundations of the creative society that ALLATRA developed throughout many interviews conducted all around the world. So this is possibly can be a very good basis where people can unite on, and if they just introduce these foundations into the daily life.
Yes, most definitely. Let's watch them up on the screen. They will play very fast. So if you don't get a chance to read them all, you can visit allatraunites.com and really dive deep into those 8 foundations.
So, Foster, I think there's lots of good news. There are millions of people worldwide sharing this vision, just as you said, a thriving society where people develop themselves to their full potential, where they create and don't destroy, as it happens today, unfortunately, that people destroy themselves, their health, the environment. We are at this turning point at the moment, and based on such vision and this resonance, where millions of people join nowadays all around the world through all possible platforms and channels, we have these 8 foundations that we've just seen, and we consider this at ALLATRA Unites that these 8 foundations, they can work only together, and they actually serve foundation number 1. This is the value of human life. How would you like to comment on this, Foster? How do you see the importance of this value of human life?
Well, it all starts there. A lot of the misunderstanding that's creating so much division and violence in the world right now, even from well-intended people. In the United States, for instance, politically, people tend to be split between left and right, liberal versus conservative. And the kind of mantra of the liberals is fairness, and the mantra of the conservatives is freedom. And yet, those two come together if you recognize that the fundamental fairness with a human being is for them to be free. So it's not fair for a few people to make up their minds, how money should be distributed, or who should be in charge, or how businesses should be run, and then make other people do it. That's a violation of the fundamental freedom, like you say in your principle number 1, that a human being is the fundamental unit. The most dangerous misunderstanding I think that we have as a species is that the people who want to rule have convinced most people that the fundamental unit is the group, for the good of the group, we the people. But that's an abstraction. There is no group. It's like a dozen apples. You can't eat a dozen. You can eat an apple, but you can't eat a dozen. It can be a useful abstraction, but it's not real. So they've used that fictional abstraction to persuade people to give up their individual sovereignty. So we need to return to a self-governing world where it's not just nations self-governing. You know, nations are a violation of the non-aggression principle, where billions of individuals self-governing, doing whatever you please, as long as you don't violate other individuals or ecosystems. And when we return to that understanding of the human being is the fundamental unit, the fundamental torus of sustainability at the human level, that I think will bring our camera into focus. It will allow us to follow the compass needle of true north, of honoring every single individual being, and all our systems will be in alignment with that, and then we can thrive.
Yes, thank you so much, Foster. And it's so important that self-governing society, and people sometimes are afraid. They say there is no way this person can vote. They don't know what's up. There is no way, you know, I can trust someone else making the decisions for me. But in reality, in a creative society, every decision will benefit a society itself. So that taking personal responsibility becomes an easy task versus pushing it off to someone else to make a decision so we can sit back and complain. So the question becomes, what conditions do we need to create right now that the personal responsibility can be back on us, the people?
Well, that's a very powerful question, because it comes out of what we were just talking about, that if we have to wait for 7.5 billion people to be enlightened, we're in big trouble. I'm not counting on that. But what we need is an enlightened set of rules that people follow. And fundamentally, the basis of that is what we've already talked about, the non-aggression principle. Because it's not, in a free society, it doesn't mean that people can go around violating each other. There will be rules against violation. So I also, when I talk about a free and stateless society, people say, well, I would never trust that because you can't count on everybody to behave well. And that's true. It's going to be a long time before everybody is behaving well. But the single most dangerous thing that we could do, given that reality, is create a society where you have these massive pyramidal institutions where the people who rise to the top are the ones who are willing to lie, cheat, steal, and kill in order to gain more power. And guess what? That's the situation that we're in right now. So we literally have psychopaths running the banks and the governments and the international corporations and taking over medical institutions and telling people that they have to have mandatory, you know, injectables and so forth. We're in a crazy situation that seems so complex we can't figure it out, but it's actually very simple. If no one has the right to rule over others, then the psychopath will be detected the moment that they try to harm someone or to create an army to violate other people and so forth. They will immediately be brought into a dispute resolution situation where they will be held responsible. They will make restoration to victims if they already did harm, and where individuals and businesses wouldn't think of violating other people, because not only would they have to pay retribution, but they would lose their insurance, they would lose their customers. So we'd be living in a world where the real currency is trust and love and personal accountability, like you were saying, rather than just, you know, standing armies and nuclear weapons and political power.
Thank you, Foster. You're telling exactly what we envision in this creative society. It's exactly the way that we see it. Can you maybe tell us more? What is the status quo that we have now, and how can we make this switch so that society could live in the mutual help and peace?
What can we do about this? You know, Kimberly and I made the movies in order to take what we thought was the necessary first step, which is education. First, to simply present the information in a coherent way so that people who are ready can integrate that information and wake up to a deeper understanding of what's really going on. Because if you don't understand what's going on, just like with a disease in your body, if you don't have a good diagnosis, you're probably not going to have a good treatment. So we made the first movie to show what was possible and what's in the way. The second movie to show that these solutions, like cures for cancer and chronic fatigue and AIDS and diabetes and so, they already exist. The free energy already exists. An ethical philosophy that transcends political power struggles already exists, and yet there's still something in the way. So we have this challenge of dealing with these authority structures that are going as fast as they can for complete domination of all human beings on planet Earth. So fortunately, the first two films are being very effective. The first one is one of the most widely seen documentaries in history with over 91 million views. We didn't know whether anybody would even be interested. And now here it is. It's such encouragement that humanity wants to know, they're capable of knowing, and when they know, then they want to take action. And so that leads me to the phase 3 of our project with the Thrive movement, is what we call the Solutions Hub, because we feel that what is most needed on planet Earth right now is exactly what you guys are doing, exactly what Thrive movement is doing, which is creating a global, actually cosmic, but for most people, a global, decentralized network of networks of people who are already awakening, already ready to take action, or already have active groups like your group, like Thrive movement. And so we realized after the first movie came out, we traveled to 40 cities around the world, and within 6 months, every city that we would go to, somebody would come up to us after a screening or a workshop and say, you know, we were inspired by your movie to create a solutions group based on your sector solutions model and the non-aggression principle. So we found out that there are these groups everywhere. So, and a lot of them were having to recreate the same wheel over again. They were working on GMOs, and they were all doing the same research, creating similar flyers, and creating funding strategies and so forth. So what we did was we created a hub on our website called the Thrive Solutions Hub, where people could come and start a group. They could find an already existing group, and then they could communicate with each other and share their best practices and resources. So people wouldn't have to do the same research twice or the same flyer twice. They could just share it with one another. So there were already over 1,100 of these groups in close to 90 countries around the world. When Kimberly and I got pretty distracted in traveling for the last 4 or 5 years all over the planet, investigating different health and energy and environmental technologies. But now that we've put the film out, we're done with that. These technologies, a lot of them are launched. Now we're returning our attention to the Solutions Hub, and we'll be launching in May the new Thrive Solutions Hub. So it'll be up-to-date software, it'll be mobile friendly, it's in 40 languages, and it allows the capability to do all the things that I just mentioned, but it will allow each of us as individuals and as groups to find each other and then leverage our activity, multiply our numbers. If you have a breakthrough technology, if you have a breakthrough idea or a scientific research paper, you simply circulate it to the coordinators from each group, and then they, with their group, decide whether or not to disperse it amongst their network. So everybody always can keep the trust of their network, but at the same time, we can get communications out and synergize very rapidly and very effectively. So I would look forward to having ALLATRA as one of the many groups in this new up and coming Thrive Solutions Hub, introducing you to other groups from all over the world and vice versa. So that's the single most important thing that we know to do for ourselves, is connect solutionaries all over the world around the right principles.
Wow, thank you so much, Pastor. And we do take this invitation very seriously, and we love to be part of the bigger community than we are, and really get together and solve this problem, solve this root cause problem that we really have, this consumeristic society, and move away from it and go into the creative and constructive and thriving society that we all really deserve. And
Exactly.
the question I have, how important it is right now to make the switch in the most peaceful, legal, and evolutionary way possible?
Well, I think that evolutionary is critical. I think that peaceful is very, very desirable. However, not necessarily the way it will happen. I hope that it will happen. I'm dedicated to having it happen that way. But if we need to defend ourselves against attack, whether it's physical attacks, whether it's medical tyranny, whether it's censorship of truth and so forth, if we have to defend our freedoms, we'll need to do that by whatever means. I've been a longtime practitioner and teacher of the nonviolent martial art of Aikido. So I'm absolutely committed to doing things nonviolently if possible. However, if it's necessary to use force to protect ourselves from attack, then that's what will have to happen. I hope that it doesn't. And the third one you mentioned was legal. That's the trickiest one of all. I think it needs to be moral, but not necessarily legal, because who made up the laws? Legal and moral are not the same thing. You know, the persecution of the Jews in Germany was legal. The persecution under Stalin in the Soviet Union was legal, and on and on. Same thing with Pol Pot, same thing in, Venezuela, and on and on. So we need to distinguish between legislation that usually a bunch of power-hungry politicians got together and made some rules and then tried to impose them on everybody else, versus actual common law, actual law based on the non-aggression principle and the protection of everyone's sovereign individual rights. So I think sometimes standing up against immoral laws is the most moral thing that we can do.
How important it is to have transparency and openness of information for all, so we can finally make decisions that affect our life in a positive way?
Well, it's a very interesting inquiry, because transparency is great when transparency is appropriate. You don't want everybody knowing about your bank account. You don't want everybody peering into your bedroom and so forth. So privacy is really important also. But when things are being done in the name of the public, they need to be transparent. So in the same way that people are always asking me, well, I say, Foster, you understand a lot about global financial corruption. So what sort of system do you think we should have? And I say, well, that's actually the wrong question, because a system imposed is going to be the wrong system because it's being imposed. So in terms of currency, we need a variety of honest currencies that compete in the open market. In terms of banks, we need a variety of all different sorts of banks that they need to be honest, but they will sort themselves out which ones are most reliable, most affordable, most sustainable. So I think that we need to honor people's privacy. And our surveillance is a really big issue these days. At the same time that we need to have for instance, media open enough that people can essentially say whatever they want as long as they're not slandering someone. But very quickly, the people who are telling the truth, the alternative truth media right now is rapidly becoming mainstream. I mean, I know half a dozen podcasters in the US who have larger audiences than CNN for their shows. CNN doesn't want you to know that, but this is happening very rapidly. You know, you used to have Pravda. Well, that's what CNN and the New York Times have become Pravda now. You know, they're propaganda machines as opposed to being dedicated to truth media. I love what's happening in Russia, in Africa, in Europe, in countries around the world. Alternative media is surfacing as the mainstream only because it's more truthful. So I think that's the transparency that we need is the opportunity to compete in a free market of voluntary exchange, and let the best, the most honest, the most useful, let them be the ones that are most sustainable.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, ALLATRA TV is really that example of the international television, yeah, international media, where we tell the truth about different topics,
Yes.
especially about climate. Yeah, and it's a very important one because there we can share the true information about what's happening around the world in time, and you know, to share people who need this information in time in order to save their lives.
Yes.
It's very important. And
And I let me, if I can jump in for a second, there's another thing that I was really excited about is looking through your website and watching a lot of the videos that your team has such a grasp of what's really going on, and you're willing to go into the philosophy, you're willing to go into the interpersonal aspect, you're willing to go into the physics, the consciousness, and so forth. And this sort of whole systems thinking is exactly what's needed right now. Buckminster Fuller warned against over specialization of any species leads to extinction. So this sort of comprehensive thinking is exactly what's needed to make sure that the pieces are fitting together and based on principles rather than politics.
Now we are at the informational stage of the project, Creative Society. And that just basically means we're going to inform every single person on planet Earth that Creative Society is being built in front of their eyes, and they have a choice to continue living the way they are or to join us and really build a society. And what we understand, it cannot be a society of one country. It cannot be a society of one group. It has to be one global family. We all have to come together under one idea. We're not going to share our wallets. We're not going to share our cars or our houses or our professions. But what we will share is one idea of building this thriving society that each of us can be a part of and each of us will enjoy. So how important it is, do you think, right now to inform all the people around the globe that we, together with Thrive, are building that community, and how could we use the technology in our own hands to do it?
Yeah. Well, it's the single most important thing that I know to do. And when I was in college, I had a number of friends who were brilliant engineers. And this was back in 1968, 69. And we would sit around talking about the future. And they would tell me, they would say, Foster, someday we're going to have the technology that will allow for instantaneous delivery of communications anywhere in the world, across borders, around the planet, instantaneously. And I'm like, whoa, you know, and these are smart guys. I realize, okay, what they're saying, it's not here yet, but it will be there. So I said, okay, you guys are the engineers. I'm more of a philosopher, physicist, and so forth. So I'll tell you what, while you're working on that, what has now become the internet, I'll be working on trying to figure out what's in the way of our thriving so that we can have content that is worthy of that sort of global instantaneous communication delivery system. So here we are. So what an incredible time for human beings like us to get to be alive and to know what we know, have access to this technology. And I don't think the creeps who are trying to take over control of the world, I don't think they're ever going to be able to shut this down, because there are too many freedom-loving hackers who will take down their organizations, their banks, whatever, instantaneously. They've shown their ability to do that. So I think we're going to be free to communicate. And this type of conversation is the most important communications that I know to have. But it's the same thing in economics and in physics and in sociology and biology and astronomy and so forth. These leading edge conversations are happening now everywhere. And the common denominator that's leading to the breakthroughs is, number one, the unified field, because we're beginning to understand it now. And number two, the sovereignty of the individual, because that's what brings those two together.
And Foster, regarding Creative Society project, can you imagine that we can live in this beautiful society, maybe even shorter than in 10 years?
I think that within 10 years, we're going to see the tipping point. I don't think we're probably going to be in a global, free, thriving society in 10 years. However, I think that what we call the global domination agenda in the Thrive movies, those who want to control the rest of us and are dedicated to it, have been for a long time. They're getting exposed and they're falling apart. They're fighting against each other. And those of us who want to be free, we've got love and truth and the life force. We've got the unified field on our side. So that's a lot for them to try to control. So they're now getting desperate. And a desperate animal can be very dangerous, and they are very dangerous now because they're lashing out. They're trying to jump over the goal line in football terms. They're trying to get across the line into a one world government where they have a totalitarian police state where none of us can object anymore. In the Soviet Union, you know what that's like. In China, they found out what that was like. In Chile and Argentina and Venezuela and Vietnam, that's what they're trying to do to the entire world. And because they're getting exposed so fast now, they're just trying to jump into that totalitarian state where nobody has any place to run, where there's no outside countries to come to the rescue anymore. So they're trying to destroy the economy and the freedom of the United States as fast as they can. I don't think they're going to succeed, but we're in a real battle here. And I think because they're trying so hard to do it now quickly, that the the path toward freedom and thriving and creativity is accelerating now like I've never seen. People are waking up by the hundreds of millions on a daily basis and realizing the banking schemes and the medical schemes and the food schemes and the energy schemes, they're all getting exposed now. And in Thrive 2, we showed that the alternatives are already here. And I think that we will take off as a species toward that. So I think we'll see the tipping point within the next 5 to 10 years. And in terms of actually being in a global thriving society, I figure I've got maybe 30 years left, 30 healthy years. Do I think I'm not sure the entire planet will be thriving, but I think that we will have left this illusion of government behind, and the critical mass of the world will understand and be operating in alignment with the principles of the unified field. I think I'll see that in my lifetime.
Foster, definitely. And you will see one milestone on this curve that you described that is just going on to the top. On March 20, we'll have an online international conference translated simultaneously into more than 30 languages. And we invite everyone just everyone on this planet to join, to show that we are all together, that we're standing one next to each other, and we're voicing exactly this vision, exactly what you just mentioned, that we humans, we can resonate and synchronize, and we can increase our capacity, our power of creating, of thriving, by so many times if we're all together. And we can do this all together because this creating, thriving society simply unites everyone. It's actually what everyone wishes for. We just get confused in putting the self to work and expressing it. But now it's the right time, and it's a big necessity for all of us. You're not the only one. Join us, and everybody, every one of the people who are now watching this, please join us. This is very important. This has been on everybody's mind and heart for such a long time, to have this humanness again, to have this we the people again, indeed we, and not somehow on paper in the Constitution or the United Nations Charter. No, that we have it in our life, that we live by this principle, not that we just talk about it, that we live by this. Yes. Any last words, Olga?
Yes, and actually what Foster said is that why it didn't work out in the past is because we didn't have the technology, like you said, in our own hands. And right now the technology is with us, and we can use it to really unite and really understand each other and really see that there is nothing that separates us, but there is so much that unites us all. And it's really this idea. And if we don't dream big, then we can come to it. So now is the time to have the most meaningful conversations about our future together, and what we can really do. And something that, like you said, like in the 70s, it was not even possible to have an instant communication like that. But let's think about it, like 10 years from now, what is going to be possible? We probably can't even imagine where we can get. And do we really need this internet? I don't know what's the next technology is. It might not be it. If we live in one universal field, it might be an instant travel of I'm going to go somewhere and teleport somewhere. Why not?
Yes. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Foster. Go ahead, Irina.
Yeah, and in fact, it's not like a fantasy. It's reality, and it is real and can be real, because now we're on the first stage about informing people about creative society, or informing about thriving society. And in fact, there is much more behind, because what's another thing you can find on the ALLATRA platform is as well such a new idea, very interesting, about electoral platform, where the people that share the same interest, this value of this 8 foundations, which is really important to them, they can unite, and they can as well make a block of people who basically ask the people currently acting in the current political positions and everything, and demand from them so that they implement these 8 foundations. So this is nothing like politicians telling this or that or proposing this in this program, but we people say we want this, and if you want us to vote for you, implement this. And this is as well a next stage, which is possible, and it's really real, and it's you can touch it. It's very, very simple. It's a new brave idea, but if many people are in that, in fact, this is society can say what they want, and not politicians propose the people and tell 100 times so that people think there is no alternative. No, there is. So this is in fact a reality. And all this new technology that's coming out, what you mentioned in your film, this brave physics research, the data from the ALLATRA physics, if this old technology will become public, will become available, will be really research will be dedicated in the main force of the researchers, and scientists will be dedicated, not like some disaggregated researching units searching for, then humanity can develop in such short time, in such amazing great steps, and it's all real. We just need to know, understand, and feel it, that it's true, and it's not a fantasy, it's like real steps forward that we will go and can go.
Yeah, I think maybe the final thing that I would like to say, picking up on what you were just saying, Irina, is that we already have what it takes to thrive. So now it's a matter of we need to make it happen. So finding out about ALLATRA and attending that conference, and come to thriveon.com and join our solutions hub, which will be coming out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Foster. And we are so excited that you are building and rewriting a history with us today, that we get to live in a moment and really look back maybe 10 years from now and say, can you believe we did this? Can you believe it really took this one conversation to make this happen? And yes, it does. If we don't act, then we roll back. But right now, it's the most important to take action. And we're not selling anyone, we're not convincing anyone. All you have to do is have an open and honest conversation. You have to understand, ask all the difficult questions that you have. We have been programmed for the 6,000 years to be slaves to the current system. And we say right now, enough is enough. And regular people, just like us, are coming together and making the future of our dreams reality. So Foster, thank you so much for being on. Irina, Chris, and Kirill, thank you so much for co-hosting. And we will see you guys on March 20th for the Global Online Conference, Creative Society, What Prophets Dreamed of. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.